Hello, I'm Dr. Bryan Duncan, and
I'm
with
Marvin
me
Bellows.
is Marvin Bellows. Yes, go
Hi.
ahead, Marvin.
Oh, Marvin Bellows, no doctor in front of the name, at least not yet. So,
And we're here to talk about rolling with it or roll with it, ways that tabletop RPGs and related hobbies are going to help you cope. So go ahead, Marvin, and introduce a little bit about yourself.
okay, yeah. Well, I'm a licensed professional counselor and certified rehabilitation counselor, and the owner of Counseling Evolved, a practice in Plano and Garland, Texas, and do a little bit of tabletop role playing. Game GMing both as a therapist and as in my day-to-day life. I love playing as a player too, and as I said on there, I'd like to collect miniatures, but I haven't been the best at painting them. I think I might have like maybe over 100 unpainted miniatures right now. So uh, I might need to get Brian to come over and help me with that.
So yes, I'm Bryan Duncan. I'm a licensed psychologist, a licensed professional counselor, and a nationally certified counselor. So I own and direct the clinical and training programs for New Leaf Services, which is a counseling and psychology office in Arlington, Granbury, Stephenville, and then of course we have a virtual presence all over Texas. And now thanks to some recent upgrades to my license, I can do 13 different states doing psychotherapy and psychology services. I also am an associate director of psychology and outpatient psychotherapy for JPS Hospital, which was recently ranked the #1 hospital in the country, and it is in Fort Worth, Texas. I GM some tabletop games for my family and friends, and then also as a therapist, I do some therapeutic right now because of COVID and my difficulty mastering so far things like Roll20. I am still doing what's called duet play. So I do one-on-one now therapy sessions using things like D&D. So I absolutely love minis. I got into role-playing and the tabletop RPGs in college, but didn't pick up minis until the pandemic hit. My daughter asked for the Reaper starter kit for painting back in December and was having fun painting miniatures. And when I was stuck in the house for several weeks at a time, I got into painting miniatures and have probably painted 100 or so since March, and am down to maybe my last dozen before I'll need to buy more. So I'll start off a little bit about what is stress, other than just rolling a 1, which is why I liked that picture. So there's a biological, physiological, and psychological response. Stress, that's what stress is. It's our response to a perception of threat or challenge. For the physiological one, we might notice a raised heart rate, muscle tension, digestive distress. From a psychological perspective, we have like increased vigilance. When your DM says, "So you're just going to open the door?" You're like, "Well, wait a minute." Anxiety, irritability, sadness, anger. There's a thing that is good for you. I mean, there's a certain amount of stress is good for us. They call that eustress. It motivates us. It's typically a very brief kind of thing, and it's a task-orienting kind of stress. We look at it more as challenge than threat. And it gives us a sense of hope and meaning that we're going to overcome something. When you walk through that door and there's, the creature on the other side and the DM says, roll for initiative. And you're like, oh, this is, this is going to be great. This is going to be fun. But bad stress, or sometimes called distress, can lead to fatigue. It's usually long-term, which would then cause exhaustion. We start having task avoidance. I don't even want to look at it. It's too overwhelming. Or it starts interfering with our lives. And then it leads to ill health. You can have heart disease, high blood pressure, burnout, all kinds of things that occur because of long-term exposures to high stress.
I think some of our dedicated GMs out there are familiar with some of those things.
Absolutely, especially if you're homebrewing your own campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, I really wanted to do this presentation because of that experience with my daughter sharing her Reaper starter kit with me. And I was familiar with minis, and I'd been playing Adventure League at that point with my daughter for about a year. And there was a fellow at the other table who was painting all of his miniatures for his group, and they were amazing. And then I see when COVID hit, there was stress just everywhere. And I wanted to give back to the Reaper community for getting me started on this wonderful hobby. And I knew I couldn't give, I mean, only painting since March. What kind of classes can I give in painting? So I would offer what I know about, and that's, psychology. So of course, all of us are experiencing a little bit of stress because I'm sure we were all planning to meet up in Denton, which is only about 45 minutes for me, but I've been watching videos from teachers all the way in Canada. But we got to do this online, and this has been really great. So the reported issues that I've heard about, the health anxiety, is this an allergy? Is this a cold? Marvin was just talking about that. It's like if you've had allergies or a cold or anything since the pandemic has started, you sneeze and suddenly somebody's like, did you just threaten me? I mean, it's really intense. And after a while, we've had a lot more increased irritability. I'm hearing this a lot from clients coming in to do therapy, just how stressful and how much more irritable they are. Increases in smoking, drinking, substance abuse, family tension, instances of domestic violence have been rising. A lot of people are reporting changes in eating, changes in their sleeping, difficulty concentrating, isolation, loneliness, just so much going on, and with that difficulty of letting it go. So I found online, somebody had posted it, I think on Facebook, where somebody had 3D printed Beholder / COVID hybrid, and I absolutely loved that and had to use that for the visual aid here, because it really does feel like we're fighting a pretty hard monster in our real life.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to talk to everyone a little bit about the kind of two mental states that are fairly free from stress that we can experience through painting miniatures, or really any type of heavy concentration focus activity. Felt like miniatures was apt for this situation, though. The first state is mindfulness, and mindfulness has been kind of a buzzword around for a few years now, but mindfulness is that immersion in an activity, but being aware of yourself in the process. When we get started painting, as I think Bryan recently did, you pay attention a lot to, how your paint is going onto the miniature, how your hands are shaking a little bit as you get that really fine paintbrush to try to get eyes on a miniature that just never seem to come out right. But as we learn the process, we develop that mindfulness, and eventually we can move from that to, with mastery of the skill that we're doing, with mastery of the painting in this instance, you get full immersion with a loss of self, and that's called flow state. Flow state is if you've ever just started a day at work and you know your job, you know what you need to do, and you remember clocking in and starting up whatever you're doing, and then at the end of the day it's like, wait, where did the time go? And you just knocked it out of the park that day. You were kind of in that state of flow. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Bryan?
Sure. I was going to say there's nothing really magical about mindfulness. It's not It's not something like a ancient, practice that you must meditate 5 hours a day. Mindfulness is really about paying attention to your attention. Where is my mind gone and what is it focused on, and bringing it back into the here and now. And so when I'm painting, like I said, it's just me, the mini, and the paint. And it also teaches me a little bit of acceptance, like life is as it is. And sometimes, while I might want that, really detailed, super great eye, what I've got is a couple of dots on a face, and it's close enough. And so it's table ready, and I'm going to accept that this is where I am right now in my development.
Mm-hmm. Kind of along with the that idea of mindfulness that gets floated around, oftentimes, we feel this need to tackle our stress head on. And sometimes that's workable for us, and sometimes we just need a little distance. And we get that through distraction, and that doesn't have to be a negative thing. There is definitely a difference between intentional and non-intentional distraction. Non-intentional distraction is when, you get home at the end of the day and you've got stuff that you need to do, and you just turn on a video game and veg out till 2 a.m. An intentional distraction is when we have that instance, but instead of vegging out until 2 a.m., we set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to distract myself and get some distance from this. Maybe I can come back to the activity that I need to do with a fresh set of eyes, come back to it from a distance, so you get that bird's eye view of it, coming back to it and feeling refreshed. That's a healthy way to use distraction to our advantage. Anything?
I don't really have anything to that one at all. Taking a break from things is very healthy, as long as you have full intention to come back to it once you've gotten some things settled, or you take a breath and you're ready to approach the problem. The unhealthy distraction is, if I ignore it long enough, it'll go away, and that's never been my experience.
I love that image you got.
I know, I found that online. I'm like, oh, this is so cute. I'm gonna see if I can put that into a homebrew.
This one?
Okay.
Or I can, sorry, I did that one.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so social engagement matters, and one of the things that's been stressful the most in my practice, from what I've heard from people, is that isolation. People are used to coming together to vent, to have fun, to do things, and all of a sudden that that suddenly feels like it's off the table or off the tabletop. Fortunately, we've got some great materials that are available through virtual tabletops. As Bryan mentioned earlier, there's Roll20. I think there are 3 or 4 other really good ones, but I've only ever used Roll20 or, yeah. One of my GMs actually set up he gets to use his Reaper miniatures because he set up a video camera that looks down on a table that he broadcasts through Zoom. So I thought that's pretty cool. So we can still connect
like that
with
to project my maps down onto the game table of Ultimate Gaming, but I hadn't thought about using a camera.
Yeah. So with tabletop games specifically, you're approaching a shared challenge. You are working together with friends, hopefully friends, to face down dragons and beholders, and you develop bonds with these people, and they become lifelong friends. And when we're in the middle of a pandemic, stress hits when we don't have those people. And some of the research that's come out since the pandemic is that virtual relationships, things like, your friends on World of Warcraft or other video games, your
Uh-oh.
Yep.
I was wondering about that. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Sorry, glitch.
Oh, did I disappear for a minute?
For a second there, yes, yeah.
Okay. And the screen's still up, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Another thing that tabletop gaming allows us to do is to take that role of the hero. And oftentimes our stress makes us feel hopeless and powerless. Getting to become a hero, to have this positive narrative about a super powerful character, like that is in itself empowering. And Brian, did you have more to say about the hero's journey?
So, to me, this is, so the Discord had some discussion about using tabletop RPGs as therapy. I hadn't planned on really getting into that too terribly much in this presentation, but this is a good plug for that. So as a therapist, I collaborate with my client, and we, create, the client creates sort of an idealized self and sends that person on a hero's journey. And as they go through the hero's journey, they develop skills and ways of approaching challenges in a sandbox that has no real life consequence. They're not them. If they make the wrong choice in approaching this problem in the game, it's not necessarily going to affect them once they leave the counseling office. They're not going to get punished or have something bad happen to them. And so they get to practice and try out new skills for problem solving, for social skills, for so many aspects of life. And we get to kind of have fun while we do it.
Mm-hmm. I would add that, along with that idealized self, people also get to try on other aspects of self. People can explore, maybe they can play an evil character and explore some of those darker impulses that they have in a safe and secure environment. Or, I work with a lot of adolescents, and sometimes there's that period of exploring your experience with gender and getting to play a character of maybe a different gender presentation than you have. It gives them a safe way to try that out.
Right, absolutely. The great thing about it is it creates, like I said, that sandbox of in this world, I can do and be whatever I want. And then the idea is there's bleed over into, my life as I start to develop either new skills or start to learn more about me. It improves my actual life beyond the therapy environment.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned bleed. That is a somewhat technical term, I guess, now.
Yes.
The parts of the character that you're playing that seep into your own personality. And there's also bleed that goes the other direction. You put some of your own personality into the character.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're talking about when we mentioned bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Not that clients leave our office, So I'll take this one on, or at least start this one. We were talking about this stress is normal parts of life. We're all dealing with the pandemic and some of the increased irritability and feeling on edge that comes with it. Life is very different than we started 2020, I'm sure, with a certain goal and certain hopes in mind, and that has not come to fruition for a lot of us anyway. But there's times to recognize when we might need a little extra help. And basically, it comes down to if the level of stress you're experiencing is overwhelming your coping strategies. If it's overwhelming, I can't take a break and paint a mini and feel like I've got my feet back under me. Or, I can't call up some friends and let's do a Fantasy Grounds or Roll20 game and relax. I can't seem to let that go. That might be a good time to seek additional support. And what that looks like in your life is if it's starting to distress your relationships. Probably the number of requests that our office gets, I don't do much couples counseling, but we have therapists that do. And the number of requests that we've gotten for couples counseling has skyrocketed, I would say, in the last few months. If you're having irritability, difficulty managing your emotions, like particularly longer than a week, like if this just, I cannot shake this constant feeling of anger, you know, it might be time to call somebody. If you're physically or verbally lashing out at others, you know, why am I calling people names? That's not like me. You know, why am I griping at my spouse for every little thing that just seems to be a minor irritation? That might be something to check in about. You know, if you're having difficulties with work or you're at risk of losing a job because you can't function at work, that might be a time to reach out. That sense of overwhelm or dread, constant fear, I feel like I can't go outside, that kind of thing, we might want to talk to somebody. And of course, the big star of any kind of, I know I'm going to need help if I'm having thoughts of harming myself or others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think our next slide is actually about who can you go to, right?
Absolutely.
And I did want to add, it was mentioned that, you know, you can have stress that gets in the way of your ability to work or causes you to risk losing your job. A lot of employers out there have what's called employee assistance programs that many employees don't know about, and that gives you access to free therapy sessions, somewhere between 3 and I've seen up to 8 free sessions for the client. So that can give you either a full course of therapy or, you know, getting you some good momentum going.
Right, a nice boost, get your feet under you. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So yes, like there are therapists, doctors, therapy groups, support groups. Like I said, I know, and a lot of people have said, even in the Discord chat section for this presentation, they've talked a little bit about how tabletop RPGs have helped them through some, you know, help them cope. And so there are, as we've mentioned, there are therapists out there that use tabletop RPGs as a therapy modality. I mean, they still have their modality. I'm more of a cognitive behavioralist. I believe Marvin's a bit of a dynamicist, as I recall. No?
No, I'm right there with you. Acceptance and commitment therapy and CBT.
Yes, and ACT. Yes, ACT, DBT, and CBT are really my big bags. So I think I was probably thrown off by the exploring the shadow, dark parts of our personality and playing an evil character. And for a minute there, I was like, oh, I didn't realize Marvin was in a dynamic field. But yes, that's there are plenty of therapists out there that do that. It is somewhat new. We take our therapeutic modalities, like in my case and apparently Marvin's case as well, CBT, and we sort of package it inside of a therapeutic tabletop kind of gaming interaction. And if you're interested in finding a specialist that does that, both Marvin and I have lists of people that we have trained with and that we know who do that. We might have a hard time, since ReaperCon is so like international, we might have a hard time finding one in your area, but we can definitely do our best.
Absolutely. Always happy to help when it comes to that. John, did we have any questions that stood out? Okay.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not seeing, let's see, look at the Q&A real quick. I didn't see any questions in the Q&A. Let me check the chat. I don't see anything in the chat, but that could be on my side. And of course, like I said before, I will be around, or I said in the Discord chat, I will be around for the duration of ReaperCon. I've been sitting in on some classes and, you know, trying to learn new painting techniques, and I will be around to answer some questions or do some directing to people to, you know, places that can answer your questions. through the Discord chat. And of course, Marvin and I will both have our emails up at this next slide.
Oh, yeah.
There's that Reaper starter kit. Has a special place in my heart now. Anyway, if you have any questions, there's Marvin's email and my email. And then, of course, like I said, if there are any questions so far, like in the chat, I would, would be happy to answer them or address them now.
Did we cover all of the things that were mentioned in the
I'm glad
Discord?
You reminded me. No, there is one other thing, and we do have just enough time to probably cover it. And you're more the expert on it than I am. So I've used tabletop RPGs as a way to teach social skills in teenagers, because let's be honest, teenagers aren't always the most socially skilled individuals. It's an awkward time of life. For all of us, it was rough, I'm sure. But there was a question in the Discord discussion about using tabletop RPGs as a way to interact with individuals who have neurodivergent diagnoses, such as autism or Asperger's or any of the common PDDs. And I've had a few clients that I've used games, video games, and tabletop games, not necessarily role-playing games, to interact with. But I know that Marvin, you've done quite a bit of that.
Yeah, I have a group that's been going on for over a year now that is primarily a neurodivergent group, and I have slightly a different take on things. Yes, I include some of what we might think of classical social skills training. That is, having the participants actually say what they would say in their character and giving them like real world responses back to them to kind of demonstrate what their language is doing. How they're engaging with others. I might even bring more awareness to the body, because sometimes that gets lost in that population, and say, okay, what would your body look like while you're trying to convince this guard to let you past? What, you're talking to a king right now, what are you doing? Those things.
I do a lot of that in my games as well. It's sort of like role-playing in my role-playing game. That's like peanut butter in my chocolate. Anyway.
There's actually been some studies out that show that, people who are neurodivergent, especially people with autism, some prefer just the title autistic, for that population, they don't really have social skills deficits with each other. It's back and forth with people who are neurotypical. And my group allows this population to come together to have a social outlet with just a little bit of those social skills wrapped in there, and maybe a little bit of personality exploration as well.
Great. Yes, there were a couple of questions about that, and so I'm glad you brought that up, because I nearly forgot.
How are we on time?
We are like right at time.
Awesome.
So unless there are other questions or anything like that we can address really quickly, I don't want to keep anybody too long. And of course, like I said, you can find us on the, oh, go ahead, Justin.
Okay,
awesome. Great.
Yeah,
I'll be in Discord chat for this if you have any questions or anything like that, and you have our email addresses.
Yep.
Oh. Oh, hey, if we have time, please, yes. Yes, I forgot that we were going live on Twitch, and so I'm looking in the Zoom chat for questions, and there's not anybody in the Zoom chat, it's just us. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I knew we'd blocked out an hour for this, but yes, I'm happy to, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't have anything pressing up against this time slot. I don't know about you, Marvin, but I can wait around a few minutes.
I don't have anything until 2:30, so.
Awesome. So yes, go ahead, Justin. Tell us what we got for the chat questions, and we'll see what we can do.
Mhm. That's a great question. And there are actually two groups offering training on that currently, to my knowledge. One of them is Game to Grow, which is a nonprofit up in Seattle, I believe, Washington. And they recently launched a, what was it? It was a consultation group.
Critical Core. I thought the Game to Grow thing is called Critical Core.
Yes, that's their tabletop board game, tabletop role-playing game that they have published. Well, it's in the process of being published. My group is actually participating in sort of a beta for that. So
Right.
was really excited to do that. We're going to be doing that later today. But they also offer training for clinicians to get involved in this type of therapy. It's actually going to be a leveled training, which means that there will be multiple stages of training. And the first stage, they're actually open to clinicians and non-clinicians. To get beyond the first level of training, I believe they're going to require you to be a clinician. But right. I might be wrong about that. And again, that's Game to Grow. You can find them on Twitter, on Facebook. I don't know if they have an Instagram, but I'm sure they probably do.
Remember. Yeah, they are very social media active. And yes, like you said, so is the Geek Therapy training groups. But yes, they have some that are there's like a level for people who are just like interested in applying what they would call geek cultural applications to their work. Say they're teachers, or they are, maybe you do something like, what's it called? Where you do like, you interact with kids in various capacities. Maybe you do like recreational therapy or occupational therapy or something like that. They have trainings to help integrate some geek culture into those works as well. And then they have a certification in what they call geek therapy. And one of the subspecialties in geek therapy is tabletop role-playing games and using those as a therapeutic tool.
Okay. Yeah, and you said that was geek therapy.
Right. Right. Geek therapy.
I do have another question here from Willarina. Let's see. Said, I have a friend with Asperger's. It's really hard to get him to talk over Discord for the games. What is a good way to help him?
I've always thought that rewarding people for, as a DM, just in fun interactions with others, if you're doing XP based leveling instead of like milestone, it is a great way to reward things like role playing and talking for clients, is to give XP. Like, oh man, they did a great job role playing that out. I'm gonna give bonus XP for that, and letting them know that you're giving them bonus XP for the more that they really get into their character or communicate as their character can really help bring people just out of their shells in general. Like if they know, hey, you're gonna, well, I say people, I work mainly with teenagers, and I mean, if you tell teenagers they're going to power up or level up because they got more into the game, then you're going to get a lot more interaction out of them.
I cut out for a minute. Brian, did you mention inspiration as well? Because
I did not. No, go ahead. Yes.
Fifth edition of Dungeons and Dragons has inspiration, where if someone does something awesome, you can give them a D20 to be able, or a token that represents the ability to re-roll a D20. And my teams that I work with just love that, so they will go fishing for it.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you and this speaks to sort of the behavior training, I think, for both of us. If you reward the behavior you want to see, like every little, like, oh, he spoke up, you get a reward for that. People tend to do things more often when they notice, hey, this really does get me closer to my goals.
Well, if you guys want to continue, you can. Otherwise, I think I don't have any more questions here, unless people want to ask them now. But it seems that this panel was received very well. So thank you very much, both of you, for doing this.
Yeah,
no problem.
People don't hesitate.
This was my first ReaperCon. Yes, yeah. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. This was my first ReaperCon, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I hope to come up with something that Marvin and I can collaborate on something and do this again next year. So.
Oh, that's actually
maybe with a video demonstration.
What was that? Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry.
Would you ask, Justin?
Sidway said, "Can you speak as to how to find a therapist for the community?"
Yes. So for most places, you can go online, and there are lots of finders that are Psychology Today and things, programs like that will go by zip code. If you're specifically interested in something that is more tabletop role-playing games, some of those sites that we mentioned, like Game to Grow or Geek Therapy, maintain a roster of clinicians that are either trained in or work with their protocol.
Awesome.
Also, Google is your friend. I know I get hits from my website because I have sections on Dungeons and Dragons and therapy or tabletop therapy.
I haven't added those sections yet. I probably should.